had so many requests to take this session of the AI Recruiting Summit presented by Juicebox and put it out there so people can actually use this for help training with their clients. So that is what I'm doing. I'm taking this from behind the paywall of the VIP Summit, the AI Recruiting Summit presented by Juicebox, which I'm so grateful for every single person that signed up, showed up, and made it an awesome week. We had just shy of 1,800 recruiters that were involved. But here's the thing. This is a training that you want to share with your clients so that way they know what's happening right now out there. Because of the technology is moving so fast, there's a lot of companies hiring fake candidates. But before we turn it over to this, I just want to say thank you, every single one of you guys, for listening to the Elite Recruiter podcast, every single episode. You know, I think we're running about 19,000 downloads this month. So I'm so grateful for every single one of you guys. And we are gearing up for the big final summit of the year. Finish the year strong. Every single summit so far has been like preparing for this one summit. So that way you can take the rest of the year and just absolutely crush it. Hit your goals, make your dreams happen. So make sure to get registered. Every single summit I do, the live sessions are free. If you want to go VIP, it's a very small before summit, $99. During the summit, $149. The goal is to make this approachable, and we have over 30 speakers that are going to pour into you for just over a week. And then to top it off, the Elite Recruiter community just launched. We're actually doing founder pricing for the rest of September. Price is $37 a month. Here's what's crazy. Every single roundtable is part of that. Or we're going to have roundtables bi-weekly. Every single summit that we've had is actually already in the courses section. So you can go back, check out all these summits, grow. This is hundreds of hours of teaching and training from some of the best in the industry. And once the founder pricing of $37 is done, the price is going up to $49 a month, which the goal is to make this the biggest bang for the buck, approachable, accessible growth community for recruiters. Because I truly believe if we come together, we can grow together and we can hit our goals together. Anyways, this training is super important. Like I said, share it with your clients, share it with your customers, help protect them from the dangers of actually hiring fake candidates. All right, man, this is going to be an awesome session. Give everybody a few minutes to jump in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, if you're over in Europe and the UK, good afternoon. But everybody on the East Coast, good morning. For those of you on the West Coast tuning in, kudos to you guys. Definitely getting up early before the workday to join. So real quick, two different things. Yes, Amy, good morning. If you want to connect with other recruiters that are excited about growing in 2025, drop in your LinkedIn profile. That's also just to make sure I got the chat working. But Amy already beat me to the punch by saying good morning and happy Friday. Secondly, there's a lot to talk about with this session. So if you have any questions, try to drop it in the Q&A box. And Alex, make sure to share with everyone and not just us three when you drop something in there. So I'm actually super excited about this session. I saw this in Axios, so I can actually say it from Axios. There's a dirty little secret right now with every single Fortune 500 company. They have hired North Koreans that have actually stolen their data and worked for them for a good amount of time. They've literally said every single Fortune 500 company has actually hired these people and nobody wants to talk about it. So it's one of those things that we are running into as recruiters. These deep fake people that are they look perfect on paper. And sometimes they're actually getting the freaking job. But I am super excited to have my buddy, Alex, who you guys know from the podcast. And he was actually everybody loved his episode. He's invited a super, super top secret friend of his that we don't even know what he actually does because he's so secretive. Rob, here, join you. Actually, I'm going to have Alex give Rob the intro. So the floor is yours, guys.
I love it. Thanks, Ben. Good to be back here. Good morning, everybody. Ben hit it right on the head. I've met Rob personally multiple times, and I don't even know if he's actually real. The joke is around, he has 12 different hymns walking around this planet at the same time. But it's super excited to be here with everyone. I'm excited to share the panel here with Rob. Rob is a great friend. He is the Chief Innovation Officer at Peak Activity, and he is a consultant with the FBI in the AI division. So Rob, I hope that is enough of a pat on the back for you this morning, my friend. Good morning. How are you doing?
I don't think I could fit my ego in frame. Like between you and Ben, I'm gonna have to go have someone yell at me on the street corner from now on. So I'm pretty excited to be here. So super pumped. Thank you all. Hello everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, men, ladies, whomever you are, wherever you are. Thank you for joining. I'm gonna try to do my best to entertain alongside Alex today. But it's hard, Alex, to be in your shadow. You are the most energetic man that I get to work with. So I'm really excited to be here.
You know, it's just two guys with long names that start with the letter P. You know, that's really it. You know, so we're excited to be here with everyone today. We're talking about deep fakes inside of the recruiting market. And I got to be honest, it is a bigger problem than I think any one of us realize on this call right now. And it's something that each and every one of us are going to experience in our career one way or the other. So the way that we're going to break down this presentation is my good friend Rob is going to take really kind of a step back into deep fakes within artificial intelligence from a high level, 20,000 foot view. What is going on in the world today? And then I myself am going to jump in a little bit more and narrow it down into specifically the recruiting space and how deepfake candidates are a growing problem inside of hiring and stuff that you may not even be realizing the consequences that deepfakes are happening inside of your organization.
Yeah, super excited here, Alex. Like, as I said, you know, you may have not realized already, but I'm Rob. This is Alex. We're going to be your guides along this journey. And I'm going to take you into this world that may feel a little bit uneasy. Starting right off the bat, 51% of people struggle with identifying deepfakes. Okay. The interesting thing about this stat overall in this presentation is that I try to pull as much qual and quant info if I can, right? The emotional stuff and the data stuff. This 51% was a study done about a year ago. So think about the progression of artificial intelligence from a year ago. This technology is significantly better. So this 51% is probably closer to like 60, maybe 65, maybe 70% when it comes to the detection of deepfakes overall, because we've seen some really interesting advancements in that technology. So much so that if we scroll back in time and look at 2024 during the public elections, even down here in Florida, there was, you know, hundreds, if not thousands, of different deepfakes of Ron DeSantis that got a ton of viewership, 5.8 million views across 12 different social media platforms, and the content really ranged. Some of it was really focused on him receding from the race. Other ones were really comical, but it was still ever present. I know personally, if I had 5.8 million views on my content, I'd be super pumped. So make sure you connect with me and all that fun stuff. But more importantly, this is a rampant issue, okay? It's happening constantly across the board. It's happening all over the place, and it's happening more and more every day. If you want something a little bit more practical, a little bit more timely, the most recent Oval Office visit with President Zelensky was deepfaked a ton of times across social media content, right? And this is, you know, quarrelsome, if you will. If the words weren't enough, you wanted to visualize what it would be like if they actually beat each other up, it would be something like this, right? Where there's a real amount of implementation of this technology to kind of change the public perception, as well as start to sow seeds of discontent or, you know, representation, or feel that their point needs to get across when we're talking about the implementation of AI generated deepfakes. And it's impactful and it's meaningful because it can change the public discourse. It can change how people feel, change how people understand things. And this is not only on the public sector side where we're talking about things that happen in the government, but it also happens on the private sector side as well. And if you didn't know, Luigi Mangione, alleged CEO, killer, attempted, if nothing else, in New York City area, is being used across Shein right now as a t-shirt salesman. And this is clear deepfake representation. And it's really now moving from deepfakes from that public sector where we're changing discourse and opinion to now moving it into this idea of generating profits for it, right? And using notable characters. And we've seen this from the launch of Google VO and their Flow platform, where it's very high fidelity visualizations, all the way through Nano Banana that just came out last week. And if you're not familiar with those tools, they're two different artificial intelligence tools that allow you to create hyper-realistic visualizations for you about pretty much anything that you want. If you want to drop yourself into historical references, you can do that. If you want to create something brand new that's never been done before, you can do that as well. This technology is absolutely insane. I agree, Ben. Nano Banana is nuts. It's almost bananas. Okay, Nicole, you beat me to it. But there is a significant amount of forward movement and progress in this space. What's interesting is that people don't realize that there's other tools on the market, though. So I'm going to hone in on Deepfake Live for just a second. If you don't know what this tool is and you're unfamiliar with it, welcome to the very dystopian future that we may be living in soon. So Deepfake Live is a fully available, 100% free, open source artificial intelligence tool that does live transcription and face repainting while on any Zoom calls. Now, I usually put it on this call and flip back and forth, but I didn't want to freak you guys out already. I'm already a clone of Rob. I'm not even the real one, so we got to make sure that we keep a level of realism here. But Deepfake Live, you can go onto the platform. You can download it directly. If you have a Windows machine, you can let it up and run, and you can actually select or upload a face that you want to be represented as, and then have a full-blown 40 frames per second video call. The interesting thing is, not the face replacement. We've seen face swap forever, right? We saw it on Instagram. We saw it on a bunch of social media platforms, right? We saw it pretty much all over the board. The interesting thing is that it not only is live now running through the webcam, but it's also reacting to light with a high level of frames per second. So as this person runs that camera light around their face, you can see that it does a really good job reflecting those. And reflections and shadows was one of the major reasons that we were able to see or make sure that this content was real or fake. And now that's starting to disappear utterly and completely, which is super, super scary depending on who you are and what that looks like. Now, talked about this a little bit already. So 17% of hiring managers, according to this 2025 resume study, have said that they've encountered a deepfake candidate. And honestly, I think this number is underreported. I think it's even worse than that. Now, the interesting thing is that this is some level of deepfake technology. This is not artificial intelligence resumes. This is not artificial intelligence written content, etc. This is specific to the deepfake side of things, which is why I really like this stuff. Now, harking all the way back to our intro, the dirty secret of Fortune 100s and 500s is that they hire a lot of remote employees and consultants that don't work remotely. We're going to talk about that directly in the future, but I want to pull out this specific screenshot that you're seeing on screen here. If you haven't seen this one before, this is actually a deep fake of an employee that worked at a company. That company was called KnowBe4. If you've never heard of this company before, they're one of the world's largest cybersecurity companies in the market. Okay, so what does that mean? Cybersecurity company had someone apply. They used a deep fake visual of the person on the right that was based off of the photo on the left. And this happened about 6 months ago. This deep fake North Korean hacker was actually hired and held a role within the cybersecurity company for about 3 months. Now, the dirty secret of this whole thing is the reason that it was caught is because someone in HR reverse image searched the right-hand side photo and found the left-hand side photo. And that was one of the major red flags when it came to working with KnowBe4. So this type of information, this type of content is everywhere and underneath the sun, and it's happening at the public side. Now, you may have heard or you may not have heard of Manus AI. And I'm going to explain what that tool is just so you're a little bit more aware. Manus AI is what's called a computer using agent. It's an artificial intelligence that can go onto a computer, whether it's in the real world or a virtual machine, and it can execute tasks on behalf of the human. That means that Manus AI can execute running 50 different X accounts and posting to them all at a single time from a desktop machine. Now, that's really, ultimately, hyper efficient for you if you were running 50 accounts, or if you were shopping for a bunch of different things, or you were doing X or Y. And we've seen this manifest itself, Manus AI browser controller, computer using agents with tools like Comet from Perplexity, that's an embedded AI browser, or even Anthropic's Claude being a browser add-in to traditional Chrome, which now we know will not be sold by Google. The interesting thing is, this technology is brand new and is definitely going to be started to be used by those that maybe have nefarious intentions. So the photo that you may have never seen is on the right-hand side of the screen here. And that's actually a laptop farm of a Arizona woman who had about 50 different remote workers virtually remoting into the laptops in her home and then working at different companies. And these were all North Korean hackers as well. And they had virtual employment with top tier organizations in the United States. And she was accepting the laptop, opening up the laptop, making sure everything was plugged in live. They had internet access and an IP that was based in Arizona, which is where they said they lived, and then were able to go and remote in without using a VPN for work. So now if we take these ideas and start to combine them together, bad people who want to do bad things, they want to do it at scale, now have the ability to do it at a incredible space and scale. Realistically, individual actors now can act as nation states. Nation states can act as multinational organizations and can execute 50x, 100x of what they normally do at a single point in time. So these are the types of forward momentum we're talking about when it comes to artificial intelligence implementations, as well as just AI overall in this deepfake space. The deepfake can be visual. It could be now text-based. It can be quite literally across the board, any aspect of this. And that's really the kind of scary part when it comes to it. And this is where I get to hand it over to Alex, and he gets to dive deeper into everything. I really appreciate you guys listening to me, kind of get a current state of how bad people are doing bad things.
Bad people are doing bad things. That is a great segue, or maybe a terrible segue. I don't know, Rob, but I'll take the mic over from there and really kind of hone more into the recruiting space. And, appreciate Rob taking a step back, talking about how big of a problem deepfakes are, not just inside of employment and work opportunities, but really as a society. There have been multiple celebrities to even come out and even actually present lawsuits to people who have impersonated them at a much, much larger scale. So it's definitely going on. And this problem inside of our society today of deepfakes, let's really drill it down into recruiting and understand that most of the deepfakes and AI generated, materials out there today that we see are in written content form, right? We have all seen the flux of resumes starting to get packed with keywords and what perfect resumes look like across the board, and are able to alter these things in seconds so that they can tailor their resume specifically for the job that they are applying to. Now, this is going to bridge a lot of stuff like even mistrust between AI and humans. So this problem isn't going anywhere. This is really the worst AI and deepfakes are ever going to be. It's only going to get worse. And especially as AI agents and AGI continues to, grow in popularity and development, this problem is only going to continue to multiply and get more and more challenging to uncover. And that means moving into faces, personas, voices, all of that stuff. There's even tools out there today that go far beyond ChatGPT, like Final Round AI and LeetCode, who actually take the interviews for you, which is just crazy. And to draw your attention to the stat below, Gartner actually said recently that by the year 2028, 25%, that's 25% of the total applicant pool out there in the market are going to be fake applicants. That is an astronomical number. And that is something that is only going to grow. There are a lot of private security and anti-theft companies out there that actually think that this number is going to be over 30%. But, that is a little bit to be seen. So as fancy as tools are and as awesome technology is, Rob and I do not have the ability to actually move slides in different locations. So Rob, if you can click that next slide for me, that would be fantastic. So this is an example of actually something that was released a few months ago. Who you see on the right is Dawid Mazadal. Pretty sure I butchered that last name, but we'll just move on. As you can see on the screen, he put his hand up to the screen to see if the person next to him was a deepfake candidate. Right now with the technology, it is a little bit jaded still, so they can't do all of what humans can do. And one of the big workarounds of spotting deepfakes is just asking them to either turn their head in different ways or put your hands up to the camera and cover your face. So this is an actual real live example of a fake candidate on the left who is actually interviewing for a software development company. And that company was actually Votic Security. So at that moment, the recruiter turned off the camera, stopped the interview, and move on. But it was later said that the VP or the chief security officer of Pindrop says that there have been an increase of 900% in AI candidate scams that have happened in the last year. That is absolutely crazy. That surge isn't going anywhere. Like we just saw with Gartner, other types of companies are coming out and reinforcing that this is a big problem. Rob, next slide, please. So when people think of deepfakes, or at least when I thought of deepfakes originally, I just thought of, hey, fake candidates showing up on screen and what's really the worst that could happen. And the worst that could happen is millions of dollars down the drain, antitrust between the public, job security, even the company's pitfalls, they all roll up into this simple infiltration plan, which we'll talk a little bit more about how candidates actually go about this. But it all starts with creating a persona. And creating a persona today is not that difficult. You can go on to Google search and just pick out a picture. You can have different types of angles to create a 3D visual deepfake element of your face. You could jump over to a platform like 11 Labs and, even just create a different voice to interview with. Now, what people are doing is that they're creating not just resumes to match their ideal background for the role, but they're also creating LinkedIn profiles recently. And the LinkedIn profile acquisitions have actually increased in relation to the amount of deep fakes that there are going around in the actual candidate market, which is just causing more and more trouble for companies to identify who is real and who is not. So if you're thinking about technology and how this will advance in the future, you can start to, think of that process, but multiplying it across, 110x while browser agents start to be deployed. And, these agents can actually change, resumes on the fly to match jobs and apply to any of these jobs that they think is suited for that actual resume that they are applying to that job with. So this problem is going to lead to, stolen personal data, antitrust within AI. And, unfortunately, once they are hired into your organization, it's just the start of what could go wrong. There was a recent story that was actually shared with me a day ago with Nicole, who's on this chat right now. So shout out to Nicole. And she shared a video that, she made about a recent North Korean hack where a nail technician, I don't get my nails done, but I believe it's a nail technician is the right word for that. And he had actually been contacted via Discord where he was playing video games from a North Korean hacker group who said, hey, We will break you off a piece of the total, sum of making all of this money through getting these jobs. We will create, your passport. We will create your identification. We will create your resumes. All you have to do is show up to the interview and we'll tell you the answers to get the job. So long story short, that person ended up doing this and not just doing it once. He actually did it 13 times to the point of actually making just a shade under $1 million that were all funneled back to North Korea. And the only way that he was actually found guilty is that he actually picked up a contract with the FAA. And when they started to realize the work wasn't up to the quality of the interview, they actually went back into looking at the videos and they realized that the identification he provided in the interview process was actually fraudulent to the person that was actually showing up every day and doing the work. So that is how that one case was found. And these are cases that are happening around us every single day. Rob, next slide. So as a few of you are thinking, how do you catch a deep fake? And I think that the way that you catch a deep fake is something we'll get into, but it's a group effort ultimately. The way at the recruiter level that we can actually spot deep fakes is, again, this being in its early stage, is identifying lag, awkward pauses, distorted voices inside of what is coming out of the speaker. These are all kind of certain human elements that we need to pay attention to, because it's important to note that with AI and with technology advancements, we shouldn't look at it as replacing us or as recruiters. We should think about it as aiding our ability to provide the best job possible. So with this technology, we have to be diligent. We have to also train ourselves and staff on how to catch fakes. And we also need to be technical. So be on the same team of the IT team that you're working with, because if IPs don't match or VPNs aren't exactly in the location of where the candidate says that they're located in, then that is a significant problem. There have been significant cases where people have spotted VPNs overseas where they got a resume from someone sitting in Atlanta, Georgia, or the Twin Cities. That is a way for people to catch deep fakes beyond just looking for those awkward pauses and the distorted voice. The last is really asking them to turn on their camera and or going on site. Typically, deepfake candidates will, fight back on the idea of turning on their camera for obvious reasons. Some of their screens probably look like this guy on the right side of your screen right now. But the other side of it is not wanting to go on site. The more that they have to go on site, that is a financial risk to themselves. And do keep in mind, these are scammers. So there are tons of scams going on. And the more that they have to go on site, the more that it's going to cost them and the more that's going to jeopardize, and risk their entire operation. So, to catch a deep fake is something that we're going to talk about, but it is injecting a little bit more of the human element, which I think a lot of the world is starting to go away from. The consequences and risks of these are pretty obvious. By the year of 2027, Deloitte said that this should be expected 14 billion worth of fraud losses. So these come in many different areas. These come with HIPAA breaches, GDPR, data protection liabilities. There's also remediation with stuff that goes on. So if you hire someone, there's going to be cyber audits that need to happen, forensics teams that need to peel back the onion peel. There's a lot of security breach, like actual consequences that go along with a security breach that go far beyond just firing an employee. It's a huge risk financially and also in the face of the public. If more of these stories get out that actually AIs and let alone AIs from other companies are the ones who are actually working with you on a day-to-day, then, that's probably not the best for your public, PR team. Rob, next slide, please. So as a recruiter, why does this matter? We just talked about involving more of the human element, but more interview rounds and making sure that you're checking the candidate's identification at all the rounds that you possibly can that is within the legal confinements that you can operate with. More interviews is going to cost more per hire, which is just going to be a natural type of consequence for this type of deep fakes going on inside of society. The more rounds that go on are the more opportunities you actually have to catch a deep fake, but to do that requires people's time, which takes money, and potentially flying them out to on-site interviews. But if you do make the wrong hires and you do hire an AI fake candidate, the type of lost productivity, the remediation that goes involved, the rehiring costs, the audit, all this kinds of stuff start to pile in. So the way I like to look at it is that, not everybody likes paying for their insurance, invoice once a month, but when an accident does happen, you are excited that you did pay for your insurance. So this is just a way that, some companies can look at it as an additional cost, but in others are going to look at it as potential ways to alleviate risk. Rob, next slide, please. So the detection playbook, we've danced around this a little bit, but you are going to have to check resumes with public data to cross-analyze. These are the real people that we are talking with. You're going to have to require more of live video interviews versus more phone calls. Phone calls are going to be super easy to fake, really, within the next 6 months, the way that this voice AI is starting to progress. Ask them to do wave, head turns, things like that are a little bit unnatural. Put their hands in front of the camera so that the actual video itself can distort by using biometric types of tools too. This can be facial, this can be vocal. Again, just use this any which way you can during the process to prevent really wasting people's time and then ultimately making a bad decision at the end of the day. Step 4, make sure IT is aligned. Make sure that your IPs, VPNs, all that stuff makes sense, because if they are jumping around to different countries, that is a clear sign that you are not talking with the person that you think you are talking to. And last but not least, really urge to start requiring at least one on-site interview. I know that is not always possible, but when we can, definitely bring that person for an on-site. I think it's always good to have that first level personable experience, but also, in a world that's gone much, much more into the remote, type of work, those are the companies that are more susceptible to these types of hacks than other types of companies. If companies are going on site and you're able to see people every single day, that's a much, much less risky situation than some of these companies who are 100% remote, where, in reality, you actually haven't met or seen face-to-face the people that you're working with for years at a time. Rob, next slide. Thank you, sir. And the human element. We've talked about the return of the on-site interview, deeper reference checks, even, reaching out to people on LinkedIn that you've seen some cross-employment with and ask them, hey, what is your experience with Jane Doe? Those are the types of deeper reference checks that we're going to want to do instead of taking, down who the candidate is going to offer up as a reference check, because honestly, that could be anyone at the end of the phone, especially if we're dealing with fake candidates. Chances are the reference that they're offering isn't really going to be the person that is going to be honest with you. So train recruiters, train HR, train other employees inside of the companies who are involved with the hiring process to spot these red flags. It's important that every company is going to go through a little bit of a procedural, shift in identifying these types of candidates, because the truth of it is that it's everyone's problem. If someone hires a deepfake, that's not going to reflect good on the recruiter. That's not going to reflect good on the hiring manager. That's not going to reflect good on the leadership company who allowed that to happen, under their watch. So use AI as a replacement, use AI as an aid, not as a replacement. That is definitely one of my biggest recommendations walking away. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and this is really what I call the cross-functional shield. This is really within legal, IT, and recruitment. Recruitment focusing much, much more on those higher level indicators such as, facial cues, visual distortedness, vocal distortedness, IT catching things like VPN and IP addresses that just don't make any bloody sense with where this person is supposed to be sitting. And then legal is ensuring that there are, really that the regulations are up to code, making sure that the right types of processes are in place, and also understanding that, AI does have a typical way even to shift into biases. So making sure that there is a level of bias and not saying that the AI kind of goes one way and then you look up and everybody in your company looks the same after a few years. That is a growing problem inside of AI, and a problem that's a company like Amazon faced a couple of years ago. Rob, next slide. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, be safe. These AI candidates are around us every single day. This is a bigger problem than we realize, and it's a problem that's not going away. So if you're doing remote interviews, definitely take these pieces with you and, ask, if you get a bad feeling, ask them to put your hand in front of the camera, ask them to turn their head, and just stay vigilant out there, because the level of AI generated resumes are not going anywhere. It's only going to get better. And the level of AI technology and AI agents to apply to thousands of jobs within a day with absolute banger resumes that look perfect for the job is not going to go away. And last but not least, what's really not going to go away are these deepfakes, where people show up to actual virtual interviews and they're not the people that you think you are interviewing. They are someone from a different country that can go in and plant malicious code inside of your financial systems. They can hack into personal assets, and they can do a lot more damage, than they can outside of your company. So stay vigilant out there. And, if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A right now for the next, 15, 20, 30 minutes. But if there are any questions that do pop up after, you had a little bit of time to mull this over, feel free to reach out to Rob and myself on LinkedIn, and, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
There is a question that somebody asked if they can get the slide deck after the presentation. Would you be able to send that to me and I can add it to the talk information, the talk data?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. I did see one question in here from Adam, and Adam, I'm gonna hit the question out, like, why raise your hand? Then it looks weird, or they follow instructions. So two different things. One is we're talking about face tracking. Face tracking specifically requires the ability to see different points on the face and then kind of mask over the digital face, or mask over the real face with a digital face. So when you put a hand in front of the face, right, specifically blocking like one eye, what'll happen is that filter will be pulled off. Okay, and then come back on. So that's why you would ask someone to put their hand in front of the face. You'll get a glitch or a filtering issue on the real face and digital face. So that's one of the reasons why. When you turn the face, right, whether it's slow or rapid, it'll have issues tracking that face as well. So those are two really good hints that Alex was talking about, and that's the technical solution. To give you a third one, a really good one is to ask someone to get up and grab something from the background, go grab this pillow and bring it, just so I know that you can interact with it. And now you're adding that third dimensionality to it. So not only are they being able to check their face, but you're also being able to check the background, and they're also able to grab something there. So that's kind of the short technical reasons on why you would ask them to do that stuff. But I know that we got some questions in the chat, Alex, on the Q&A side of things. You want me to read them out to you to make it easier for you?
I got it right here.
Oh,
so Jackie, let's talk Jackie first. Really good question. So question is, do you find that fake candidates are primarily for software engineering / technology roles, or are there other roles at high risk? Really good question. Right now, the deepfake candidates are really attacking any industry. And I think that we have to look at this as how deep are these deepfakes, right? I think at some level, on surface level types of roles, so let's say more sales roles or financial or customer service, everybody today is relatively using ChatGPT or some AI to make their resume look better. Now, that is just in itself a conversation point, that there are people who are outside of the engineering technology field that do this exact things. But if we take that one step further and we're talking about more of the visual types of interviews that we just rolled over, then those types of interviews are much, much more susceptible for engineering remote types of positions. So positions that don't require someone coming into the office every day, shaking hands, kissing babies, that kinds of stuff, that is definitely much, much more at a higher risk. And also companies who hire at a very, very high volume. So example of the holiday times, when companies hire a lot of volume, that typically means that things are going to be missed. So again, hope, Jackie, that answers your question. Deepfakes are around us every single day. It's just more to the extent of the deepfakes. And again, this is the worst that technology is ever going to be. So in 2 years, we really don't know where this is going to happen, especially when we start to talk about, robotics around us and human beings that can really kind of, walk around and do certain things that humans can. And then, we get into a really deep conversation of just, AI agents running AI agents. And, a buddy of mine asked, hey, at the end of the day, if the work's better, do you really even care? And I thought that was a great question. And we won't go into that on this presentation, but it is an interesting thought. I think there is a clear line behind do we care versus like actually security threats and people being able to plant malicious code inside of our systems, breach personal data, all of that kinds of things. I think that there is a line, but it's certainly an interesting question and for a different day.
I think, Alex, I think you should take this next one as well with Adam Porter. While initial responsibility is on TA and recruiting, what training could be given to hiring managers to also be active participants in this detection?
Definitely. Great question. That goes back to the three-prong attack, or the shield, as I call it. This is definitely going to require more of like process adjustments and updating within HR, but we should start to run actual candidates through an IP check to make sure that the person is logging into the virtual interviews where they say they are located. So that is one way that a team outside of human resources specifically can help that problem. It's going to start with TA and recruitment because those are your first line of defense. You're going to be able to spot out that distorted voice and facial recognition, but then trickle down into more of the IT team. But then a lot of the same type of training that the recruiting team has to spot these types of, concerns, right? That same type of training should be rolled out to other employees at the company, especially if you are in a hiring capacity, because those types of folks are going to take virtual interviews just as much as the recruiters are. And in some cases, those folks are going to be dealing with the candidates on a face-to-face if there are on-site interviews, even more than the recruiter. So it's important that everybody be on the same page with everything and that people do get the adequate training, not just from an HR TA level, but throughout the entire organization.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that too, right? Alex, we've been asked a bunch of times to come in and do presentations and support the training process because individual recruiters or the talent acquisition side or even HR directly can kind of say this over and over and over again, tell people what to look out for, but sometimes you need an authoritative and alternative voice to help echo what's already been stated. So if you need help within an organization and you need someone to come in and do that, you can always reach out to Alex and I, and we can kind of put our foot down and help support some of the training that's already happening, but with a new, unique voice and point of view as well. So I'll always lean on that too. I think there's one more for you in the chat, Alex, too.
Nick Roman, what's up, bud? Good to not see your face, but see your text right there. Nick's an absolute legend. But truthful answers only. I only like wrong answers only. But no, the honest answer with this is to just end the interview, respectfully, right? I don't think that it needs to be abrupt or anything like that, but if there is a clear fake and there is a fraud and you have gone through the list of tests that you want to actually roll through with a candidate, then just simply say, hey, thank you for your time, and we'll be following up with you and end the interview. There's no reason for you to continue that interview, especially if it's an actual fake and it's a fake.
Yeah,
thanks
agreed.
For the question, Nick.
Yeah, respect is even critical in some of the worst times, right? There's a question in here too related to opinions on different softwares and technology or recommendations on that side. Speaking and being a part or connected to the Bureau in the U.S. government, I can't make recommendations on technology. That is a little bit out of scope for what I can legally say. But Alex, I don't know if you want to share anything that you've had success with or anything like that when it comes to the tech side.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, Amy. I will send you a links of a couple softwares that I found. I don't think that there's anything like specific that's going to like catch actual deep fakes today. Don't think that that's something, but there are definitely softwares out there where you can check IP addresses and see where actual candidates are logging in from.
Cool, awesome. Any other? Okay, hold on. We got some others in the Q&A portion. I love this. All right. Are there specific apps? Oh, again, I guess recommended for background checks? That's an interesting one. Do you have anything for background checks, Alex, that you like to use?
Sterling, that's always kind of the one that I've been with. There's also, different layers to this, right? I think too, depending on if you're, in government types of recruitment, right? There's certain layers of getting a secret, top secret types of clearance. So, it all basically comes back to a lot of these background check companies are going to provide a lot of the same types of solutions. It's just however, you want it. I think a lot of it's going to be more on the due diligence during the interview process, doing on-site interviews, and also deeper reference checks. I think that that's really a strategy that any one of us can do that doesn't really require anything extra than a few more minutes, but it is going into people's backgrounds and being able to see what types of companies, other types of connections you may have on LinkedIn that worked at the same company as this person, does, and actually ask them their experience of that individual. And I think that the more deep fakes become, more common in our world, I think that that is going to be something that we see with higher frequency. But I would definitely dive deeper into the reference checks. If that answers your question.
I'll tag on here. There's two that I've run across in conversations in the past. I'm not advocating for them at all. Do your due diligence research. I'm definitely not plugging them. But I believe I've heard GenSpark for a background checking tool. And then another one that I've heard is Whitebridge AI. Whitebridge AI was used by an organization that I was partnered with to do know your customer background checks when someone was purchasing luxury goods. So it was really, really interesting. It pulled social media, LinkedIn, emails, history, a bunch of other information to see if that person was actually a verifiable potential buyer. So I saw it used in that capacity, very, very different than what we're talking about here. But yeah, and let's see. Any other questions anywhere?
I think you guys did a really good job answering these. I think somebody just dropped a question in there.
Yeah, what do you think about injecting a prompt into the conversation by asking something irrelevant that can maybe not be an answer, but AI would? That's going to help with deepfakes, or is that just for people using AI to answer? That's a good question. So I've seen this done before where someone's like, oh, how much does a blue whale weigh and what is the average quantity of blue whales in the ocean, right? And the candidate's probably not going to know that for maybe a technical call or something along that lines, unless it's very oceanographic. But if they're using AI for the pure response back, the artificial intelligence may answer. I have seen that. I think it's easy to kind of get around as far as a question, but it's definitely interesting kind of idea that I've seen come forward, Shadow. So yeah, Alex, I don't know if you want to piggyback on that.
No, I think that's, exactly. Yeah, there's certain layers to this, right? So like asking an AI a certain question, they still may be able to respond very, very like articulated, right? Like they may be able to respond excellently, right? But I think that that's kind of a question that I'd ask, or is this a phone call? Is this a video call? Is this an in-person call? If you're getting any types of red flags, then I would take it to the next step, which is definitely a video, and then go through, some of these different pieces of advice that we shared, which is, turn your head, ask them to put their hand up. I think that this kind of stuff sounds a little weird to us right now because it's still so new, and that's totally understandable. But I do think that in a few years, we're going to be living in a world where this is very common practice. So, times will change, technologies will change, but the reality is that we do need to stay very, very diligent out there because this is a problem that can sink any company at any time. And I don't know about you, but if the company hires a deepfake and it's one of my clients, they're coming banging at my door, looking at me like, what did I do wrong? Right. And I wouldn't like put it past them that they shouldn't, right? Because that is our responsibility. So just the long story short, mistakes will happen, but go through your certain protocols that you have and make sure that you're taking your diligence to make sure that you can remove that risk as much as possible.
Awesome. Ben, I think we're going to hand it back to you to close this out, maybe.
So I don't understand Gen Z language. Is I'm shook like correct verbiage?
I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I thought I like knew this stuff. I thought I knew it pretty well. I'm shook and I'm like, holy crap. Thank you, Nick.
Base.
But man,
Thanks, Nick.
I
Nick,
just
like
want to say
usual.
for everybody that came to this session, I just want to say thank you guys. Like this is actually a dang good session. So real quick, if you could drop an emoji in the chat, your thoughts on this session, that would be absolutely awesome. And Rob and Alex, I just want to say thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your guys' day to not only put this together, plan this out, but also deliver. Because this really is one of the things that like you guys hit some really good points. You know, we are probably coming soon to a time where, you know, us recruiters will have some sort of responsibility within this stuff. I think right now we just don't know what's happening and everyone's just kind of like, you know, they don't want to talk about it. But could be a point in time where this needs to be part of our insurance package. So
For sure. Couldn't agree with you more.
I know this might be one of the few replays that I might have to drop on LinkedIn, like outside of the Summit replay package, just because I think it's such an important message. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll give you guys a quick 45-minute break before we get to the next session. We got 2 more for today. The day 4 of the AI Summit before we, you know, this has just been absolutely amazing. I'm so thankful for every single person that's been able to plug in. And yeah, I'm kind of a shook. I'm like, crap. I thought I know, but you guys went deeper than I knew.
Happy to. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you having us for sure. Really, really awesome. And make sure if anyone on the call needs anything, feel free to reach out to Alex and I. Happy to support give you support through these very interesting times that we live in.
Yeah,
real quick before I let you guys go, let me drop the LinkedIn profile for Rob and Alex in here. So I just dropped it for Rob, and let me grab Alex's LinkedIn profile. So make sure to follow both of them. Something I should have been doing throughout the session. I was just so focused on the actual content. All right, guys. Give you guys a quick break, and we'll see you guys shortly.
Thanks, everyone.